Hey, what's going on, guys? Appreciate you tuning in. We got to talk a little bit about the Suns because the next domino has fallen officially. Finally, Phoenix is able to agree to a 2-year contract extension to Devin Booker. Not much of a surprise. Crazy amount of money. I mean, he was going to get the max no matter what, but the man signs a 2-year extension that is worth a grand total of $145 million extra dollars, which means when it finally kicks in, this guy is going to be making $72.5 million a year, setting a new NBA all-time record, which was set a week ago, 2 weeks ago by SGA. It's going to continue to do that. That's just the way that it works. As more money comes in, these salary cap goes higher and higher. But he becomes now the highest paid player in the history of the NBA per year. Crazy. Now, like I said, not really surprising. Everyone was waiting on them to kind of reach this agreement. There was some talk. I saw some, people on message boards saying that, they're not sure he's worth the extension and stuff like that. I agree. In some ways, there's questions around that, but you still have to offer it to him and you still have to sign him to it for a number of reasons. First off, if they didn't sign him to this and they just kept him under where the contract was, what that would have done to any semblance of a chemistry, of a culture, of everything that they're trying to build in Phoenix would be out the window. This is a guy that has spent his entire career in Phoenix. He's the all-time leading scorer there. He's a guy that has the keys to the city, and whether or not his talent and his skill and his high end is enough to deliver you a championship as the best player is regardless. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It does not weigh into the fact of you can't upset that guy and still keep him for a few years, because then you were just going to have a real problem in the locker room that was going to lead you to have to try and break it up or figure out what was going on. And then if you feel like you get backed into a corner where you offer him the extension later, those feelings don't ever kind of go away, those hurt feelings. It'd be a lingering problem for this franchise. Now, what signing into an extension does do, in a lot of ways, is give you some options. Now, again, that's a crazy amount of money. That's Supermax. Once it does kick in a few years down the road, it's going to be a serious problem when it comes to the salary cap. It's going to be putting them, in that neighborhood when you fill out the rest of the roster, where they're going to be sitting there stuck, knocking on the door of, the second apron almost right away. But what it does do is he is under contract now, and he does have a no trade clause. So if this thing continues to go sideways and they decide that they do need to reset, he does have that extra length on his contract where you can use him as a trade piece and go out and get something. You're also further away from him being able to really kind of do what players have really done of saying, I'm out of here. I want to go to this team or else I won't sign the extension. And they have all the power. And then all of a sudden your trade asset isn't really worth anything. So he becomes a viable piece. If you do decide to blow this whole thing up, that you can trade him now, and his trade value is higher because the team who'd be acquiring him would know that he'd be under contract for X amount of years now longer, 2 extra years on it. The other side of it is, if you decide you don't want to trade him, you have a happy superstar. Now, he's going to be, like I said, he'll still be there, still be under contract. You at least know you got that one piece locked down, which is a franchise piece. So whether you decide to keep him, whether you decide that you need to move him, it works both ways. It does, like I said, hurt you when it comes to the salary cap for the simple fact of this right here. The hard truth of it is, I don't think Devin Booker is good enough to be your best player on a championship team. He is clearly not in that first cut, which is Giannis, which is SGA, Jokic, Luka when he's right and healthy. Those four guys are the first tier. The next tier right after that, I am not sure he's in that tier either. That very next window has Jason Tatum's of the world when he's healthy. Brunson's trying to play his way into that conversation, and he's pretty close at this point. You got a few other, AD's kind of in that weird, probably closer to Booker, I think, than those other two guys. Kawhi, when he's right, I think he's taking a few steps back now. Durant's probably still right there. Curry's hanging on to that spot. LeBron is hanging on to that spot. Like the guys that you can talk yourself into being our best player on a team that could win a championship. A lot of the guys have. They're starting to get older, though, a bunch of the ones that I just named. So I think he's in that next tier. I think he's an A- player, which is still really good, but I don't think an A- player wins you a championship. It's got to be someone a little bit better. Now, you're limited on what you're able to do with a lot of moves once you've committed that much money to one guy. It's not over. You're still able to go out and you can have a couple of supermax guys on your roster, but with the way that the NBA set up now with the second apron stuff, you have to be very good at signing guys to fill out the rest of the roster to make that work if you want to be competitive. You have to be very good. Not a lot of people have been able to navigate that window and make that work the right way. It's tough. You got to be able to draft the right guys. You got to fill out the rest of the roster. And you have to get lucky on someone outperforming their contract. Now, while he may not be that A+ player or just a straight A player, A- is solid. You get a couple of those guys. Chris Paul was probably the best player on the team that made the finals. Probably. Booker had a great run with him. And I think if you pair him with a very good complementary piece that's also an A-, that's enough that you can go on a run and you can make it happen, especially now where you just got to get a little luck with health. You got to have some things fall your way. It's just now it's going to be harder to have the space needed, salary cap wise and everything else, to kind of fill out this roster. These max contracts just put so much restriction on what you're able to do as a team. Now, they still had to do it regardless, again, if they decide that they want to keep him, if they want to move him. And, there's worse problems to have than saying we have a great player who's maybe not full-on superstar, but a guy that is a star, and we had to pay him a lot of money. There's worse positions you can be in than that right there. But there's also a couple of better ones. And you'd really wish you had a guy that was closer to that top 5 in the league versus a guy that's probably in the 15 to 10 on most years. But you got to do what you got to do. Suns had to do it. They had to sign him. Had to give him this extension. And now they have options on whether, if they decide they want to, a couple of years down the road, if it's not working, if they want to blow everything up and flip him somewhere else. And if things are trending in the right way, you have a happy superstar, happy star, and you still have enough that you can go out and sign another max contract in that meantime. But things start getting expensive in a hurry. And they've already kind of hampered themselves here, looking at being a repeat offender of the second apron. So there become less options for them as well. Had to do it, though. So at the end of the day, should feel good about it, should feel happy. It does add some pressure a little bit, but it gives them options. So overall, I think this is good news for Suns, and this is something that Phoenix fans should be pretty excited about. Let me know what y'all think.